Welcome back to successWerk, the Success Factory. My name is Felix Becker, and I am, of course, your very own success coach on this journey we call life. Now, as you know, I've been sharing conversations I'm having with other coaches with you so you can learn more about who coaches are and what they do. And this conversation today with Arndt Haddenbrock is a perfect example of a life coach. What are life coaches? What do they do? What is required to become a life coach? These are all questions that we answer on this very episode. It was an absolutely fascinating conversation. I had such a good time connecting with Arndt, and I think you too will get a lot of value out of this episode. Now, if you do, please be sure to like and subscribe, rate and review, and share this episode with your friends and family, because the more people we can reach, the more people we can help. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get right into the conversation I had with Arndt Haddenbrock. So nice to connect with you again.
Yeah, thanks, Felix, for the opportunity to chat. It's awesome to talk to a fellow coach, and to do this in a podcast format is new for me, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is not going to be really much of any difference than the last conversation that we had. So why don't we start with very basics? Who are you?
Well, my name's Arndt Haddenbrock. I'm 53 years old now. My wife tells me I act like a 15-year-old, but I am 53. As you can hear, maybe I have a slight accent. I'm from Germany as well, and then in 1994 went to the U.S. What I thought would be just for a college degree, and then I would go back. And well, here I am, so many years later. So I got stuck in a positive way. In terms of my professional upbringing, I've been until recently was 25 years working with a company in the tire industry, mostly in sales, and then had to leave that company due to a conflict of interest. And so all of that in the time frame during COVID. And I don't know, Felix, how you spent COVID. My COVID was fairly miserable because I was, during the lockdown, we were furloughed as well. And that was a period where I was forced to sit down and actually hear myself think about many things that sometimes when you're very busy, you avoid thinking about, or you say, I'll do that later, and you never do it. But during COVID, then we were all forced to kind of look inward a little bit. And I did that as well. And I was asking myself questions about my career path or my life path. And what do I really want to do when I grow up? And so that was an interesting experience. And for me, that was an experience of feeling stuck, feeling a little lost. And later on, I thought about, well, I was not the only one feeling that way. And I was not the only one looking for resources to kind of get unstuck. And sometimes I didn't have access to these resources, or I didn't know where to look for them. And in sales, I always liked to use coaching techniques. And I thought, yeah, coaching would have been something that could have helped me in this time when I really felt lost and didn't know where to turn to. And that's when the idea came more and more. Hey, I'm interested in coaching. I've always been interested in it. Try to practice it in a corporate environment, which is obviously different from what you do as a life coach. But that was one thing that got me kind of interested in the idea of coaching and maybe pursuing a certification of some sort.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would say most people had that experience during COVID where, you were forced to stay at home and you couldn't go to work and you had time to think all of a sudden. And that probably made a lot of people realize that their lives were maybe not what they wanted it to be. My time during COVID was a little different. I was still working as a physician. I had just moved to Ohio. I was trying to build a practice in nursing homes. And so I was still trying to actively go into nursing homes to try to build my own medical practice. And that came with its own challenges, let's just say. But, I definitely didn't have as much downtime as some other people did. But part of that too was somebody still had to pay the bills, you know? So that that was a big thing during COVID, right? You had to pay bills, but you also were stuck at home, not working. But coming back to you, how did you end up in sales?
Well, I became a trainee for the company I worked for. That was in the retail business, and I did mostly sales. I had other roles, but sales was interesting to me. I'm typically a more introverted person, and that typically would say salespeople have to be more extroverted, and that probably there's some truth to that. I think I still was a good in consultative selling because I was really trying hard to listen to what the real problems were rather than jumping in, and talk to a client or customer and saying, I have a great solution for you, and I don't care what your problem is, but here you go, it's my solution, and you like me, you'll buy from me. Um, but I also did some more analytical positions. And I really what I really liked the most when I was in sales, I was the best job I think I've ever had was when I was a regional manager for a sales team of 15 people in a region, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I had people on my team that just started in their sales career, and I had people that were 35-year veterans and everything in between, and to manage that bunch of folks with all that comes with it, I really enjoyed it. I learned a ton, and I also learned more about coaching. About not giving advice, but listening and helping people think for themselves and trust that they actually have the solution to their problem in them. And my job as a supervisor or coach was mostly to help them find it, guide them on that path of discovery versus telling them, well, Felix, here's what I think you should do based on what I experienced in a similar situation, you know.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. So did you have any experience with coaching yourself, or is that something that you just came across and you discovered some of the techniques and started utilizing
Well,
them on your
I
own?
really, I really discovered it, Felix, because I was in an individual contributor role for a long time. And then I really felt I have it in me. I'd love to do that. But I also knew that I needed to beef up on my skill set. And I actually read a number of books that still I read them every year. There's the book, The Coaching Habit, which I like because for at least for me at that time, as a person that was stepping up to managing other people, it helped me understand that I needed to tame what the author calls the advice monster, that this need that we sometimes feel to jump in and tell Felix, here, this is what you need to do, and to stop that and asking more questions, listening, really understanding that you got the problem right, and then going on a different path and helping the person solve their problem themselves versus you giving them the solution. And there was a different book that I read from David Rock, Quiet Leadership, and I just saw that book in Barnes and Noble. I liked the title because I assumed it would teach me as a more introverted person naturally to become a good leader. But it does a little bit of that, but it's really more about mental models and also about how to have coaching conversations. And so once I read that, I really had the discovery that, oh my God, yeah, no, these skills I need to develop. I'm not there yet. And so this is how I got into this idea of coaching and trying to build that skill, one day at a time.
Yeah, no, it's actually interesting. I was just thinking, you're right. Coaching is not about giving advice, but we always feel compelled if we have some experience or some knowledge that we feel the other person doesn't have of giving advice and maybe telling people what to do or how to do something. And yet, if we're on the receiving end, we know we don't want to operate or we don't want to be told what to do, right? We'd rather, there's some curiosity in all of us that we'd rather identify the solutions on our own or find the way forward on our own without being told by someone else what to do. That's probably also where a lot of the problems come in with parenting, right? If you're a teenager and you're trying to find your way in the world, and you want to make your own mistakes, right? You want to have your own experiences, and your parents always tell you what to do. That's probably where a lot of the disconnect comes in with parents and teenagers as well. So innately to us, we're not good at, or I shouldn't say we're not good at, but we don't want to receive information unless we're actively seeking it out. And yet we feel compelled all the time to give advice, to give that information, to tell people what to do if we feel that we know something that they don't seem to know. So why do you think that is? Why are we humans like so black and white and like so opposite on the giving and receiving ends?
Well, I think when we have the impression that we are an expert at something, and maybe sometimes we're just an expert in our own mind, but then we almost feel obligated. Hey, I've run into this. Let me tell you how this works. We want to solve problems, and that's especially, for instance, in my corporate experience before becoming a more of a leader. Yeah, I was an individual contributor in solving problems. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Now, that is not very effective when you really have to lead other people, because, like you said, there are very few people that really enjoy being told, here's what you do and here are all the details, and please, Felix, get back to me when you're all done with it, and then I give you a pat on the back and we feel all great. So it's natural, and I actually noticed that I right now, as I'm doing peer coaching or coaching with outside people, I'm much better and I feel much more comfortable when the subject is something that I don't think or claim I'm an expert at, because it really, really forces me to shut up, to listen and ask a lot of questions, reframe or repeat. Did I get this right, Felix? Is this what you just said? And that then helps me to train better, because yes, I still have this advice monster in me. If you give me a certain career path problem, I might jump, even though I have the best intentions, I might jump into this advice mode without even noticing it. And it's not what the client needs. Whatever experience I have may or may not apply to your situation. And just because we talked a bit, what really do I know about deep down your problem? You as the client know it all. My goal should be to help you see some different things and be your flashlight when you're in a dark room. And I help you point the flashlight to the left and right. And then we say, what do you see? What do you see there? And then getting new perspectives. And I noticed that I'm so happy that I'm a general practitioner right now. I could settle for leadership coaching right now, or career coaching, but right now I need distance from that, because I'm too prone to go into giving advice, and I notice it, and I need to, before I can be effective in this part of the coaching business, I need to actually be a general practitioner and work other problems.
Yeah, it's amazing that you have that insight. That's fantastic. And I agree that speaking with people from different walks of life is an incredibly humbling experience. You learn things that you didn't even think people could be thinking. It's kind of wonderful, to be honest with you. I mean, I tell you, I've had conversations now in the last couple of weeks, both recorded conversations that are going to be on the podcast, as well as conversations that I'm not at liberty to share with people, and experience that they've had that are very different than anything that I have ever experienced. And sometimes I do feel deep down inside of me some judgment wanting to creep in and trying to push that away and trying to stay curious about the other person. Is definitely not an easy task. But once you push through that and once you get into that neutral curiosity, you learn so much about what it takes to be a human being and where all of us come from and what makes this human experience honestly just so wonderful and amazing and fun. So really kudos to you for saying I can't be in the leadership space right now because I have too much advice to give, versus honestly I just want to help you as a coach, right?
Yeah, and I like what you just said. And one thing about this curiosity, and non-judgment. I learned to meditate many years ago, and I go bi-weekly almost to a group, and and all we really do is sit. There are 10 people of us, and it's quiet, and we'll sit and meditate. And sometimes people come in and wonder what are these people doing? There's not a word spoken, but there's a camaraderie there. And what I learned through that meditation practice is really to have this skill to suspend judgment, to not judge and say, okay, I'm curious about this. My own feelings of other people, and that is a critical skill for a coach, because yes, sometimes clients will bring us problems and they're head scratchers because we feel a little, I've never dealt with something like this before, or we may, as you said, there's an initial prompt for us to judge a certain statement or what have you, and this meditation practice has allowed me to become aware of that and then suspend the judgment and then go back to what you just said, to that neutral path where I can listen to you and be fully present without building in my own head a story about your problem and what I think about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So with all that, I mean, that obviously takes skill. That takes experience. That takes some kind of skill building that you have to get to in order to develop that, to polish that, to hone that, in order to be able to really give yourself mind, body, spirit to your client, right? Be in that presence, as you mentioned. So you had read some books on coaching and presumably leadership previously to try to learn how to be better at all those things. But then you still
Mhm.
decided to go into a coaching program. And so now I'm curious, there's lots of people out there who call themselves coaches who have never been through a certifying program.
Mhm.
And so because the label coach is not regulated, right? Anybody can call themselves a coach. And so what do you think the coursework added to your knowledge, to your expertise, that you couldn't have gotten just from reading books or hang your shingle up and saying Arndt Haddenbrock, the coach?
Well, um, I knew that something was missing, and I didn't know exactly what. But I can expand on it now. Now the coaching industry is mushrooming, and a lot of people hang up their shingle and say I have life experience, and that's why I'm a good coach. Which then tells me, yeah, you want to give your advice to people, versus doing the harder work of really being with a client. I searched different programs, and the one that I chose, Lumia, that we were both part of that community. I liked their approach, and I liked also the community that we have, and the fact that you and I are now talking is an outcome of being part of that community. What was missing, I now know, for instance, when we talk about something like giving space to a client. The first time I heard that term in class, it felt like something fluffy, and I didn't quite know what does this mean. And then through practice, I became more aware of what this could mean to give my client Felix space to express his problem. Because sometimes, maybe you have that same experience when you talk to clients, they first need to be listened to. They first need to listen to themselves very, very often, out loud. It has happened to me that a client is saying something out loud and then says, Arndt, this is the first time that I've said this out loud. I've thought it, I had it in my head, but saying it out loud to another person, that changes things, right? It's no longer just internal. So concepts like that, and I also recognize that what I thought I did in a corporate world very often wasn't coaching. I was using some coaching techniques, but I'll tell you quite honestly, I think back to what I felt were coaching conversations at the time. And I wonder, yes, I did use some coaching techniques, but because I also was a supervisor, was I manipulating my client at the time because I wanted a certain outcome? Because when you quote unquote coach in the corporate world, or you do it with a team member or an associate, well, there's a different power structure in that relationship, because you as a supervisor also have to report to somebody else and say, what is happening to that associate that you're coaching? What outcome is there? And that can certainly impact the way you show up and be present with that person. Um, and a number of times I thought, oh yeah, I thought I was coaching, but I was using some coaching techniques, yes, but it was not really coaching what I was doing.
Yeah, no, and you're so right that the holding space, and with that also giving the both people in that conversation an equal footing, right? Yeah, sure, there's a coach who has some expertise on tools and techniques and exercises to maybe go through to expand your mindset, and the client obviously trying to improve. There is some, by necessity, some power dynamic there, but the idea still is to make this a level playing field so that the client, who presumably is the weaker of the two in that power dynamic, doesn't feel overpowered, doesn't feel disengaged, can feel vulnerable with the coach to be able to develop those mindset skills, those changes, whatever they're working towards in their goals, right? So that's huge, and that's not something easy to acquire either. That takes a lot of hard practice sometimes because, like you said, you come at it, even like in your leadership position, you come at it oftentimes from a different perspective. You have your own agenda, and trying to leave that at the door is definitely something that is not easy for most people to do. And so I agree with you. I think that's one of the big benefits of going through a coaching program, to not only be aware of that, but to learn some ways to work around that and then get the practice to actually make that happen. Um, so as a we're both just really at the very beginnings of our coaching career, but from where you're standing right now, what do you think is missing for you as a coach? Like you coming out of school, what do you wish you would have learned more of? What do you think all coaches could know better, could know more of, should
You
know
know,
more of?
it's an interesting thing because in my experience, all of us, or maybe not all of us, but the great majority of us, we're very good at uh, meeting a fellow coach who has a certain degree of imposter syndrome. But we all have it to some degree, this fear about, who am I to think that I should build a business, be on a podcast, do this, be seen as a coach. I mean, I will not lie to you, Felix. I thought a couple of days ago I had the thought about this podcast. It's like, what excuse could I get Felix that I can't make it? Because there was this brief interlude of, who are you to talk on a podcast? What can you offer? And I've noticed that within Lumia, we all have it to some degree. And I think what I thought I would learn that more in class, but I think it came more through community engagement and talking to other coaches and doing things like this. Is the way to defeat it, is to build a community and exchange ideas with coaches and share that. Yes, I too sometimes think this was the craziest idea. Why did I get into this? Will that ever work? But all of these things, we have them, and everything that's worthwhile. If you don't have these self doubts along the way, something is missing. The key point is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to then say, well, I'm going to listen to that voice that tells me I'm not good enough or I shouldn't do this? Or are you saying, I'm open to a new experience? So instead of giving you a sorry tale about, oh no, I can't make it because I'm sick or whatever, no, here I am sharing myself, not knowing how it's going to turn out. But I do know that after this podcast, I'll have a good experience. I have the experience of what it feels like to put yourself out there, uh, not exactly knowing what is the outcome.
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right. It's all about ultimately taking action and working through that fear, that uncertainty. I think, at least from my experience, I don't know that we specifically addressed it in class a lot, head on at least. I think indirectly we addressed it through the coaching sessions we had in front of our classmates, right? I think everybody had hesitations, oh my God, am I good enough to coach in front of everyone else? Do I know what I need to know? Am I going to ask the right questions, right? Am I going to be able to show that I have the skills that it takes to be a good coach? And so really it was just the action taking for the most part that we had in class. But I agree, the community ultimately is where it's at. The all the discussions that we have outside of class with either our own classmates or even other people from different cohorts who've been through the program before us, during us, or after us, to have similar experiences. And I think this is one of the things that I would like to share with the world, with other coaches as well, is that you're absolutely right. We all have this going on, and it's perfectly okay. That's why we're here. We're all human. And as long as we have this discussion, we can work through it. We can take action and change our perception, your perception, and how the world even perceives us. So knowing all that, and you're absolutely right. Coaching is all about taking action ultimately, right? That's where we're trying to get people to get off the couch and do something. So what do you think the world should know? The reason I ask this question is I come from a background of where I was always told that coaches were, essentially swindlers and snake oil salesmen, and they really had nothing of value to add, and they just took your money. And you really did need a coach if you knew how to be successful on your own. And I've obviously come to realize that that's completely false. Coaching has completely transformed my life, but I came at it at first from a very limited mindset, and I want to change that for people who listen to this, for other people out there who are just like me, who don't know what coaches even is. So what would you like to tell the world that coaching can do? What's been your own experience? How has coaching transformed you? And what would you like the world to know that coaching can do for you?
Well, you hit on something very important, and that's why coaching lights me up. Because when I was coached by a couple of Lumia folks, I felt something. It's like this is what coaching can do. Because when I do peer sessions, I give my fellow peers a real problem that I'm wrestling with. I'm not making it up, or I'm not dressing it up as if, oh, my friend has this problem. No, no, no. This is my problem. And I was, yeah, very stuck with some things. I've been in ruminative cycles about certain things, sometimes smaller problems, but it irked me. Why can't I figure this out? And why can I not look what's wrong here? And I had outstanding coaches that really helped me to look at my own thinking patterns when it comes to certain problems. And I noticed that, when you're stuck, it's like you're taking the wrong exit every day on your way to work. It's the same one, and you know it. It's the wrong one. You did it yesterday, but you don't know how to change it. And a good coach can do a couple of things, just help you be aware of what's happening. And sometimes what happens in a coaching session, there's silence, Felix. It can be 15, 20 seconds of somewhat awkward silence. And that happened to me when a coach reframed something, and all of a sudden I had this aha moment. It's like, oh, good Lord. Here I've been struggling for, I don't know, a year. And then this question comes in, and it changes the way I think about it, and I see new possibilities. And I also think that a good coach will be a good accountability partner and accompany you in this problem solving mode, because we stand in our own way very often. And people should know that. And I know what you mean by this, the snake oil salesman, because for a long time, Felix, when somebody told me, "Oh, I'm a life coach," I kind of cringed and said, "Okay, sure, that sounds interesting." Or if at work there was the rumor that such and such an executive got a coach on the side, then there was the whisper in the hallway, "Oh, he might be on the way out if he doesn't address a certain problem," things of that nature. But really, coaching can be transformative if you find the right coach and if you as a client really engage. That's the other piece. If the client is doing it to go through the motions, or because they want to have a feeling I'm doing something by doing a session without really working it, then there's a problem. Coaching has a transformative nature. And I know, had I had access to a good coach during my pandemic haze and confusion, uh, the time that it took for me to get out of that would have been cut by 80%. There would have been clarity much sooner. And think about all the objections that people can have about not hiring a coach. There's the financial aspect. It will the assumption it will cost me a lot of money. In my experience, in hindsight, I gladly would have paid a high rate, hourly rate for a great coach to avoid the loss of time, the mistakes I made, the wrong exits I took, the confusion that resulted based on that, the feelings of confusion, guilt, and shame that I had at a certain point in my life. Had I had more access to a resource like a coach, I now know it the outcome would have been different, and there would have been less pain and agitation, and going back to the monetary position, I think I would have been better off there as well. So coaching is transformative. It is, however, important, Felix. And again, I'd like to go back to uh, this thing that you mentioned. Yeah, everybody can call themselves a coach, and that's why you should, when you're looking at coaches, look at where did they get their education? Did they get coaching specific education, and where, and with what focus? Because exactly as you said, people can put their shingle up, and based on life experience, and I'm not against life experience, it's great, but as you and I know, by going through a program, you do get access to a whole new understanding of how to help a client, and how to become a better coach. Uh, and that is something that if you don't have it, a client will be shortchanged.
Yeah, no, yes, I agree. You just the short summary for me even is I wish I had found coaching sooner. I'm right there with you. I've even just I've dealt with depression for a long time. Suicidal ideations. I've been through on like 7 different antidepressants in my life. Been through multiple rounds of therapy, and the problems I always had with therapy was, can we stop talking about my past, please? Because it's done. I can't change it. I want to find a way to move on. Right? Like, how can I take myself today and move forward? And I never got that out of therapy, and so I wish I would have found coaching sooner, because that's exactly what coaching did for me. It helped me find better ways to move forward. And just like you said, we are our own worst enemies. We are our own number one problem in this world, right? I was my own problem. And it wasn't until I discovered coaching that I was able to work through, most of that. Some of it I'm still working through, but I finally found a way to break through all those barriers, to stop taking the wrong exits, to not have that guilt and shame and all those excuses, and actually find a path forward, to find solutions, to make a difference in my own life. And yeah, so I know I'm right there with you. I wish I would have found coaching sooner. And what's really interesting to me is, for everything you just described, coaching isn't about giving advice, right? We're not here to tell people how to live their lives, what to do, or how to think. We're just guiding them and, like, massaging their thoughts in a way so that they have a different perspective on their own lives. And that's where the power really comes in. That's where the magic happens, right? Because all these life transforming things, somebody who doesn't know anything about coaching, somebody who's never had coaching, would think that we're here telling people how to live their lives. And that's not at all what we're doing. It's
No,
fascinating,
no,
right?
but we are trained to know how the brain functions a little bit. We know that there's a negativity bias. We know that we are prone to have certain feelings, guilt, shame, fear. That is part of our evolution. Our brains haven't changed, uh, or have not adjusted yet to our way of being. And you mentioned yourself struggling with mental health. I too did that during the pandemic, um, and I'm glad that I had help in my family and people around me, so that I could get better. I really sensed though that I missed the boat on, once I felt okay again, uh, to find a resource that helped me create my future and think about it, because sometimes it can be overwhelming. When your life changes dramatically, when the plan that you had in your mind for your life stops, and it happens to people when they get laid off, when a partner wants a divorce, and all of a sudden everything you knew about your life changes. And then how do you look toward the future? How do you build a vision, and how do you negotiate it? And feelings like the ones that you describe are very difficult to go through, but a coach can give that space where you can experience these emotions safely. You can process them, and you can be with them, and understand, okay, this is Arndt when he has fear about the future. And then you are with that, and your coach can be with you in that moment, and you learn, I'm not going to die here. Yeah, I don't know exactly my future, but I'm not going to die here. And we're going to work together to find it, because how often do we want to get the solution right now, because we're so used to the satisfaction right now. We don't have the stamina anymore to say, yeah, when you're going through a divorce, or you've been just laid off, there's so much stuff going on that you need to unpack. And if you don't do it, it haunts you down the road. And this is where coaching can help you as well, so you can get to that future state, to building that future and saying, hey, this is what I can still do about my life. I'm the author of my life. I'm not a victim. Things don't happen to me. I can make things happen. And that is, I think, a very powerful thing when you have a relationship to a good coach who can guide you, who can question you, who can hold you accountable. And sometimes, Felix, also in a gentle way. Sometimes we talk about giving space is all about safety. Sometimes in my experience, it's also a coach needs to step up and say, no, this is bullshit. What I just heard, maybe not quite say it that way, but stop and say, no. I hear an excuse here, or something like that, and giving brave space and saying, no, let's step out. Let's do that podcast, get that experience, build that quick website, that simple website, show up as a coach, for instance, or show up in your new life with small steps,
Yeah. So that brings me to an interesting dichotomy here. I kind of want to know what your perspective is on this. On the one hand, having life experiences, I think, can be tremendously valuable as a coach, because you might know things about certain situations that your client brings to you that they're not aware of, but that you can shine some light on. And you can open doors for them to think about a situation from a different perspective that they have not been able to identify on their own because of your previous experience with a similar situation. Like divorce, for example. You mentioned divorce. So like divorce is, an example. On the other hand, we also said that having some of those life experiences can be a problem, because you might feel like you need to give advice as opposed to coach. So where do you reach the balance between life experience is actually beneficial and life experience is harming you as a good coach?
I think it comes back to awareness, of being aware that all the experiences that we have are an asset, but also potential liability in the relationship. I'll give you an example. If I were to coach someone uh, who had a similar background, maybe also with a mental health issue, I might get triggered as a coach. I all of a sudden would go back to my feelings, which are different from what my clients go through, and then I'm not as present, or I may not be listening to what you're going through, what you're trying to tell me, because being triggered, I'm in my past, and I'm not listening to your present. But I think life experiences are valuable, uh, but the awareness of, hey, the life experience informs the questions I may want to ask as a follow up, versus this trigger that I have to say, oh, I have a solution for you because I too got divorced, I too got this, or whatever, and to suspend that judgment and to give advice very sparingly and only as an option, and if you really feel it's serving the client and it's not serving you to get something off your chest. I mean, it has happened to me sometimes when a fellow coach was telling me something as a in form of an advice, but it felt like they needed to get something off their chest right now in the session.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard, right? I mean, that's not what a coaching session is about. It's about the client. It's not about you. So if you have that you need to get off your chest as a coach, I feel like that's something you need to take either to therapy or your own coaching session, right? So that's not something you should bring up to the client.
I'm interested. How did this show up in your coaching experience, life experience, as an asset or liability? I'm interested how you experienced that.
Yeah, the big thing for me, to be honest with you, is that problem with diagnosable conditions that coaching doesn't touch. I'm still a licensed medical professional, so they're all fair game for me in my other life, and so not going into the therapy realm has been, if anything, has been the challenge for me because that's another piece of my training and interest, and so trying to really stay within the coaching sphere within a coaching session sometimes has been a challenge for me. So if yeah, I know in my Lumiere class, we talked about the 4D framework, and in our small groups, we tried to dissect that a little bit and unpack it and learn more about it. And I said we don't want the 50, which is diagnosis. That's the one we don't want. But yeah, that for me personally, that's been the biggest challenge, is uh, not going into the therapy realm, the realm of diagnosable conditions, medical conditions that have a very different approach, different treatment than what coaching does, and not just from my own personal medical background, but also from my own personal background with my own mental health challenges. Because there's a lot of times when I talk to someone and they mention something, and I'm like, wow, I can so relate, right? And it's the hard part here too is I want to share some of that so that I can show empathy and I can show the other person that I know what they're talking about, right? I want to prove to them that I truly understand where they're coming from, but I also don't want to make the session now about me. I don't want the focus to be on me. I just want to share enough for them to know that I understand where they're coming from. I want to just be empathetic about their situation in that moment. Um, and figuring out how much to share and when to share sometimes is a challenge. So I would say those have been my biggest challenges as a coach with some of the finer techniques there.
Yeah.
But speaking of coaching, so Arndt, you said you obviously have experience with leadership, but you don't want to do leadership right now. You're kind of a general life coach. Are there any specific people that are intriguing you more than others? Whether that's
Well,
Olympic athletes or circus clowns, like, you know,
I right now there are a couple of client types that I can think of. In general terms, if you are listening to this and what we have talked about, these life transition moments, if you're in one, whatever the cause may be, I'm here to help. I'm here to listen. That lights me up, because I understand from my own need state that I had at the time of my life transition. Oh, I would have loved now in hindsight to have had that resource. Um, when it comes to other things, I also, while I don't like to get too involved in leadership coaching, one thing that I feel strongly is helping people out that come from an individual contributor role in a company to their first real leadership role where people are reporting to them. Because Felix, very often that's first of all is a big jump. Uh, most of the things that made you a great individual contributor will not help you all that much in that role when all of a sudden it's not about what you get done personally, but what you get done through and with your team. And there's a lot of confusion and a lot of mistakes are being made by younger upcoming leaders that don't have that are not well prepared sometimes for that step, and they are confused and they get frustrated, and in that frustration they take wrong steps, you know. And that's something where I also like to help folks out, but mostly I right now focus on life transition. I'm doing a little bit volunteer work. I'm functioning as a business mentor I'm part of the SCORE organization. They have chapters throughout the US, and they're helping small businesses with expertise. And that is my way of exploring, is this business coaching, potential leadership coaching? How can I get into this, or when am I ready for it? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That totally does make sense. And I think a lot of the transitions, that transition coaching, I think knowing what I know about your life, that makes sense, right? I mean, moving from Germany, getting into sales and the leadership there, then COVID happened. Now you're getting into coaching and all the other little projects you have happening on this side. There's definitely been a lot of transitions in your life, and those transitions are always hard because we like to be set in our ways. It gives us some kind of calm and peace, and from an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense because anything new could be a potential danger to our livelihood. So anytime change happens, it really stimulates that flight or fight response, which gets people into that stressed out, agitated sense. So going through these transitions alone can be incredibly challenging. So I really good on you. Those transitions are so hard, and there's everybody goes through transitions in life, and having a coach. I know for myself, all the transitions that I've been through. If I had a coach, it would have made those transitions so much easier. So that's awesome. I love that. I
I
love that.
couldn't
So,
agree.
listen, I wrote a book recently on networking better, and so I want to ask you some questions out of that book just to get to know you a little bit more on a
Yes.
different level. Okay,
Okay.
so these are the fun questions.
All right.
Um, what is a place you haven't been to yet but really want to visit?
Well, I love the country of Argentina, and a place I haven't been there is Patagonia. It's a big area, obviously. I'd like to see Bariloche. I would like to really be there. And my wife and I have a plan of going there next year. Knock on wood that actually happens. But that is what I'm thinking right now about a place that I'd really love to be at.
Now, my understanding, the Bariloche region has a lot of Germans too, doesn't it?
Yeah, in Argentina, there are different regions where there are lots of Germans. I traveled there last year, and in Cordoba, where there are also some areas where you can get a genuine Oktoberfest experience. They have German beer, and it's real German beer. So yeah, there's some influence still there, and my wife and I need to be there to support that influence.
Yeah, absolutely. Is your wife from Germany too?
Yes, yes, she is.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Um, and that now I have to put that on my bucket list.
Oh, I recommend it.
Would you rather take a cold shower on a hot day or a cold bath on a hot bath on a cold day?
I
So
think I'm
cold
more of
shower
a,
on a hot day or
you
hot
know,
bath on a cold day?
before I would have said probably the hot bath on a cold day, and living in Ohio, we can all feel that that warms us up, and we need this. But I recently also got into breathing techniques, and on also this ice bath uh, piece that I've tried once, and it actually is very enjoyable. It's not enjoyable for the first few seconds, but then it actually is something that I kind of enjoyed. So I'm kind of in between.
All right, fair enough. Would you rather get to your destination quickly and spend more time there, or take your time and enjoy the journey instead?
You know, I will say that I've learned to enjoy the journey. When I was in my life transition, I'll spare you the long story, but I decided to take a month and travel to Argentina, and I had three destinations that I wanted to see: Buenos Aires, Rosario, and Cordoba. And I didn't make, very untypical for German, I didn't make a long list of things, all the things that I needed to see, or the pictures I needed to take and put on Instagram and Facebook. And I really said, I'm going to travel there and be open minded, and let things happen. Yes, I did make I met some people there, and that had to be organized. But in general terms, that trip was all just improvised, and I did let things happen, and wonderful things did happen. I met people that I never would have met, had experiences. I went to a soccer match in Buenos Aires, an unforgettable experience. you know. And had I not traveled in this open-minded way, I would not have had those experiences.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's been just a wonderful experience being able to travel and being open minded to new experiences. We kind of talked about that earlier in the conversation, even so. I hear you. That's the way it should be. Would you rather have a cat that barks or a dog that meows?
I'm a dog person. I'll take the meowing dog.
Right. That's awesome. Now, I started something brand new this week, and I actually took that from Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO podcast, in that the previous person got to ask a question that I'm going to ask you now. So, this question comes from the previous guest, and the question is, and then you get to ask the question to the next guest at the end as well. So, what are you most afraid of in life, and what is preventing you from exposing that fear to create a possibility to break through it?
Well, it's probably I have a fear that we all have of sometimes starting something new and showing up. Like it's one thing, Felix, to say I'm a coach in the Lumia community, and then you're doing it and you're telling people on the outside, so to speak, I'm a coach, and there's a lot of fear or nervousness, and the only thing that I know how to do, and I had to learn it, is just ask myself, how do you want to show up in life? And that helps me a great deal when fear comes up. And then it's like, well, can I do this with fear and with being nervous? Can I still do it? And 99.9% of the time, the answer is hell yes, of course I can still do it. And that would also be my question, that you can ask your next guest. How do you want to show up in your life? And what things do you want to change? Because that to me was a key question that was asked at the beginning of the coaching program, when I think it was Coach Bam. She asked us, how do you want to show up in this program? Do you want to be a consumer, or do you want to contribute? And how do you want to how do you want to do that?
I love that. That's a great question. Yeah, I don't know who the next guest is going to be. I don't know when that's going to happen, but whoever that is, I will pass that question on to them. So that's
Yes,
awesome.
good.
Where can people reach out to you? Where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Well, right now, I have not set up formally a business, but I'm on LinkedIn, and I know you're going to post about this on LinkedIn as well. Go on my profile. There's a contact info. I can send out a Calendly as well. Let's just chat if you have a need, and if I can personally help, then I have access to other coaches that may be more specialized in whatever you're going through. So either way, whether it be personally, I'd be personally coaching someone, or I'd be helpful in finding the right fit. I'm happy to talk to anyone who is maybe in that life transitioning mode, or just in general terms stuck and needs to get unstuck a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll be sure that leave, obviously, you'll be linked in all the posts that I make on LinkedIn, but I'll leave your contact info in the description as well for the YouTube and the
Perfect.
podcast, so people can reach out to you if they want to. Any final words from you to the world?
Just don't be afraid to ask for help. Build a strong community, and coaching can be part of that support community that you need to navigate in life. And the final thing, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat. And it's an awesome thing that you do. To also be seen, as now as a podcaster. That is not an easy thing, and I'm looking forward to the next episodes, and to receiving an answer to the question that we
Yes.
that we defined.
Yes. No, Arndt, thank you so much for doing this. This has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. And I have come to really enjoy meeting tons and tons of people through this. That's been just an incredible experience. I mean, like I said, I'm having the opportunity to have conversations with people I never thought I would get the opportunity to talk to, about topics that I never thought I would have the opportunity to talk about, or that I would even have considered. So thank you. This is wonderful. So much gold in this episode. I'm just gonna end this with a mic drop.
No, thank you. Appreciate the kind words, but it was a great experience. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, again, thanks for being there. The pleasure, honestly, is mine. All right, I really hope you enjoyed that. The questions that I asked towards the end are from my new book, The Simple Networking Tool. It's a great book that redefines how we network. It's all about who someone is and not what they are. So if you want to get your own book, it's available on Amazon. If you want to learn more, there's videos about it here on YouTube. So you can check out this amazing new social science experiment. I'm so excited for it. If you do get a book and you do start your own, please let me know how it goes and what your experience is like. I'm working on the second edition and I want to make it the best one yet. So be sure to tag me, let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching.